Welcome to the channel English Epics. My husband, with whom I had lived for 20 years, did not fit the typical descriptions of husbands or the shortcomings we laughed about at bachelorette parties. In reality, those remarks were more like complaints, or even humiliations of our husbands. Perhaps we, as women, saw it as a form of group therapy. Of course, many of those comments, though demeaning, were delivered in a rather humorous way. We laughed at these men. Alcohol lifted our spirits. It wasn't easy for me to perceive my husband, Cooper, in a negative light. He was handsome, in fact. He didn't even look like a father, but he was fit. Besides that, he knew how to manage finances and provide for the family. He spent a lot of time with me and the children. He didn't require much care from his wife because he almost always gathered his own clothes and hung them neatly in the closet, while the dirty laundry went straight into the basket, already sorted into whites, colors, and darks. He could even do the laundry himself, though I mostly took care of that. He enjoyed grocery shopping, which I appreciated at least, until I stopped being grateful and started taking it for granted. The cars were serviced, cleaned, and fueled. The yard looked good for the neighbors. He was sociable and friendly with both them and all our friends. He was a good lover. Though after 20 years, you know exactly what to expect in the bedroom. And me? Yes. I was a little bored with our sex life, but it wasn't as if Cooper didn't try to spice it up. Toys, long weekends, lingerie for both of us. I used to think he was the one insisting on all that, but looking back, I realize it was more for me. Did that add some stress to our marriage? Yes, but my husband was devoted to me, and although he sometimes felt frustrated by my attitude, he accepted it. He knew how to handle difficulties, which made him an excellent financial planner. When economic downturns or market fluctuations upset his clients, he had the ability to manage the situation, endure their frustration, and listen patiently until he could offer a reasonable perspective. I think that's why so many clients stayed with him. Of course, his plans worked for people, but it was his personality that kept them coming back. So why did I become dissatisfied with my husband and start looking for a partner for an affair? In the end, I made a terrible mistake. I don't know how I ended up here. I feel stuck. I don't know how to change anything. It's a constant roller coaster of uncertainty and tension. A part of me almost wished to be caught, for our affair to be exposed. Living a double life was exhausting. If I were caught, it would take the decision out of my hands. What happened next would depend on the circumstances. As I continued the affair, it drained my marriage. Intimacy, connection, and my focus on my marriage slowly faded away. The emotional connection with my husband was weakening. Our physical intimacy was fading. Our relationship had become distorted, at least from my perspective. Of course, my husband must have sensed it. But did he truly know? Or was he simply too committed to the vow of being together, for better or worse, to do anything but accept it, just as he had with so many other things? Perhaps it was because there had been no clear evidence for a long time. But did he notice how we had drifted apart? How our relationship, so familiar after 20 years together, had changed? The way we interacted, our routines, the way we presented ourselves in public, how we appeared composed and open, it was all different from the patterns we once had. Saturday night was just another girls' night out, and we all went to a new club. It was clearly a place for young women in their early 20s. We stood out, partly because of our age, partly because our dresses fit a little more snugly than those of the younger girls, and even in the way we reacted to the attention we received. But the attention, oh, it was thrilling. It felt amazing to be asked to dance, especially in a club. Not like at a wedding, where couples our age waited for a slow song so that our husbands could finally drag themselves out of the bar to share their one obligatory dance with us before either heading back to the bar or spending the rest of the evening looking bored at home. No, this was exciting, loud, wild dancing with younger men who showed genuine interest in us. So what if I was 42 and the guy I was with was 28? A small age difference, right? Since we girls always arrived separately by taxi, we also left separately. By the end of the night, we had all lost track of each other anyway. This guy, Harris, dressed well, smelled nice, had a full head of thick hair, was fit, danced effortlessly, and knew exactly what to say. Maybe the alcohol played a role, but you know what? I enjoyed the laughter, the feeling of being seen. I liked his interest, his curiosity, the way he carried himself like someone desirable. It was such a contrast to the predictable rhythm of life with my husband. One day, Cooper told me that the secret to selling his financial products had little to do with facts and everything to do with the emotions behind the sale. Looking back at that night on the dance floor, I realized it was all about the emotions of the moment, not the fact that I was a wife, a mother, a homemaker. Good emotions are incredibly persuasive. They just feel right. You know what I mean? If something feels good, then it must be okay, right? Kissing on the dance floor was scorching hot. Even off the dance floor in the dimly lit hallway near the restrooms, I found myself pressed against him, my lips brushing against his. Harris kissed me back hungrily, his hands exploring my curves, caressing my tempting hips. "I've wanted to do this all night," he whispered in my ear, his warm breath grazing my skin. "So have I murmured back, my voice laced with desire. In the dimly lit hallway, where occasional clubgoers passed by, it felt as if we were the only two people in the entire place. Harris leaned in, grabbed me, and pulled me close. I let out a soft moan and instinctively pressed myself against him. "Oh, damn, yes," I breathed, tilting my head back. Harris took the opportunity to kiss my neck. A shiver ran through me, and my breathing became uneven. After countless dances and stolen kisses both on and off the dance floor, Harris finally asked, "Do you want to get out of here?" as his fingers slipped inside the cup of my bra. I accepted his invitation, and we left for his place, which, as it turned out, was in the prestigious Oak Hollow neighborhood. I'll admit, a few thoughts crossed my mind on the way there, but our conversation was captivating, as if I were with someone who truly understood me. Someone open, someone real, everything about it felt natural, right? Safe and comfortable. As he walked me to his front door, his hand resting on the small of my back, I felt a mix of emotions, nervousness, uncertainty, anticipation, all at once. I wanted to touch him, to experience something I hadn't felt since my college days. But then a sudden doubt crept in. Would I be good enough for him? Would he still find me attractive outside the dimly lit club? In this well-appointed home, we couldn't keep our hands off each other. I glanced around, spotted the staircase, and pulled him upstairs, assuming that's where we'd find the bedroom. The moment we stepped inside, I pushed him onto the bed and climbed on top of him. "I've wanted this all night," I murmured, pressing my hips against his. Surprised by my assertiveness? Yes, I'll admit it. I thought it was best to act quickly before he could change his mind. Okay, that's a lie. It was because I didn't want to change mine. As I straddled Harris, he reached out and pulled me closer. I gasped and arched my back as he ran his hands down my sides, his touch igniting a spark beneath my skin. His fingers traced soft, deliberate lines along my back before finding the clasp of my bra, releasing it with practiced ease. His lips brushed against my shoulder, trailing kisses that sent shivers through me. His hands explored my curves, pulling me into him as our bodies moved in sync. "I've been wanting to do this all night," he murmured against my ear, his warm breath sending another wave of anticipation through me. "So have I whispered back, my voice laced with longing. His hands traveled lower, guiding me as we fell into a rhythm, every movement deepening the connection between us. The heat, the excitement, the sheer thrill of the moment, everything felt different, intoxicating in a way I hadn't experienced in years. My breath hitched as the tension built between us, every sensation intensifying until my body tensed, my nails digging into his shoulders. A soft moan escaped my lips as waves of pleasure coursed through me. Harris held me close, his grip tightening as he followed me over the edge, his body trembling against mine. We stayed like that for a moment, catching our breath, feeling the warmth of each other's embrace. "That was incredible," I murmured, staring at the ceiling, still lost in the afterglow. "Yeah, it really was," Harris replied, pulling me into his arms. We lay there for a while, tangled together until our emotions finally settled. How was the sex? Amazing. I mean, after so many years with the same man, everything was obviously different. And how could it not be? The movements were different. The rhythm and sequence of events unfamiliar. The technique was new. It's like driving a car you've been used to for years, only to suddenly find yourself behind the wheel of something entirely different. And then, it's like renting a brand new car while on vacation. It smells different, has new gadgets to try. Out feels unfamiliar when you sit behind the wheel and drives in a completely different way. Before I knew it, I had to take a taxi home, arriving at 2 a.m. Cooper was already asleep, so I quickly took a shower, for obvious reasons, and slipped quietly into bed, setting my alarm early enough to wake up and make coffee as if nothing had happened. The next morning, Cooper came downstairs to the scent of fresh coffee and a humming wife. Yes, that morning I broke my usual routine. I'm not a morning person and usually grumble until I've had a few cups of coffee. I think he was just happy to have a cheerful wife for once. Over the next few days, I found my thoughts drifting so much that Cooper even asked me if something was wrong. I have to tell you, when you're having an affair, you quickly learn to think on your feet and come up with reasonable answers. All right, you get it. They were just excuses. But what was I daydreaming about? You already know. The pleasure. Laughing, lying next to my lover, reliving the wonderful emotions and the rush of endorphins from that night. Even more dangerously, I was starting to consider reaching out to Harris to see if we could relive that evening. What's truly surprising is that, throughout this entire thought process, the idea of remaining faithful to my vows never even crossed my mind. Why not? With the kids away at college, Cooper usually held client meetings at home after dinner, which left me with plenty of free time. And Harris? Could he make time for me? Would he even want to? Should I call him or wait for him to call me? Should I buy a second phone? Could I change the lock code on my current one? How often one has to resort to deception. He was more than happy to hear from me, and even arranged for us to meet at a hotel on his dime. It was an incredible day. Then, the girls started making plans for another Friday night out. But this time, one particular girl had a different destination in mind. Somewhere else was his home in Oak Hollow. Well, technically, it was his grandparents' house. He was house-sitting for them while they spent the summer in Europe. It was a beautiful place. Tree-lined streets, large houses spaced far enough apart that the neighbors couldn't interfere in anyone's business. I drove there to save time and money on a taxi. Besides, no one would see my car from the street anyway, not with the towering oak trees in every yard, creating an atmosphere of privacy and seclusion. It became a regular thing to the point where emotional feelings started to develop between Harris and me. But what was it really? Was it because he was young, masculine, and satisfied me so well? Was it because he made me feel desired? Or was it simply the thrill of the affair, the escape from the stability of married life? What did he see in me? Did he have a thing for older women? Did he find my maturity more appealing than that of younger girls? Did my life experience seem more certain and reliable compared to his past relationships? Or was it the fact that I was married? Did that make him feel safe, knowing things wouldn't go beyond a certain point? All these questions remained unanswered. But honestly, they were better left unexamined, because the sex was incredible. And really, who was getting hurt? No one. So, life with Cooper went on as usual. The same old routines, including my dear husband performing his weekly Sunday morning duties, refueling the cars, cleaning them out, and giving them a good wash. Looking back, I realize with some regret that it was a bumper year for oak trees. Different types of oaks drop their acorns at different intervals, some only once every 4 years, some every 3, and others every 2. Every now and then their cycles align, leading to an abundant acorn harvest, sometimes piling up ankle deep, depending on the number of trees in a yard. This was one of those years. Now, guess what my husband found in the cowl of his car? You know that vent-like space at the base of the windshield, where the wipers are? Answer: hundreds of acorns. There isn't a single tree near the downtown club, at least nothing that could have dropped an acorn. Imagine his curiosity. Where did all those acorns come from? Everyone knows that prestigious neighborhood, the one with stately old homes and even a few mansions. A place famous for its towering mature oaks. Oak Hollow. I didn't discuss Cooper's thoughts with him directly because, as it turned out, there wasn't much for us to talk about. I'll come back to that later. But I can imagine him wondering why my car had been in that neighborhood during a girls' night out. None of my friends nor anyone we knew lived there. His mind had probably started piecing things together. My wife's car, Oak Hollow, girls' night out. A happy wife? I'm not great at math, but maybe he started adding things up, patterns that either began making sense or perhaps didn't make sense at all, and that was the problem. I don't know. What I do know for sure is what happened a few weeks later, on a Sunday morning, after another girls' night out, which for me had now come to mean another indulgence. At the time, it seemed amusing. Now, not so much. Cooper woke up early, especially considering how late I'd gotten home and how I had slept through the night without stirring. I came downstairs for a good cup of coffee, and Cooper was making scrambled eggs. So I sat down at the kitchen table, trying to pull myself together with caffeine, despite the fact that just a few hours ago I had been having sex. "Here you go. Baby, I made you some scrambled eggs," he said, placing a plate in front of me. He lifted the pan and scooped the eggs onto my plate. I blinked, thinking my vision was still a bit blurry because I couldn't quite make out what was mixed in with. The eggs, bacon, or sausage. I squinted and looked again. Acorns. Acorns in the eggs. Lifting my gaze, I saw my husband leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, a deep frown on his face as he stared at me. I waited for him to say something, but he just stood there, watching. Something was clearly wrong. You don't need to be a wife of 20 years to know that if you find acorns in your scrambled eggs, something is very wrong. But having an affair means you live in a constant state of paranoia. Yes, you think you're taking all the right precautions to hide an amazing affair from your spouse. But I was constantly looking over my shoulder, feeling annoying anxiety, wondering if I had overlooked something he could discover. Acorns in the eggs. A husband with a stone-cold face, and complete silence. That definitely meant there was a problem. And yet, he wasn't saying a word. How was I supposed to play this? What would you do? Well, I glanced back down at the acorns in my eggs and decided to act like it was nothing. "Thanks, honey." "I don't think I've ever tried this combination before," I said, picking up my fork and starting to eat, casually pushing the acorns to the side while stealing glances at him. Still, silence. Our laundry room is right next to the kitchen. Cooper walked through the door into the laundry room, came back with a plastic bag and dropped it onto the table in front of me. Again, not a single word. I looked up at him, but this time his face was angry. He still said nothing. Did I dare say anything? Should I ask him what was wrong? Or should I just open the bag? After all, he had thrown it in front of me. Instead, I just sat there. "Dump out the bag," he ordered. I picked up the bag and emptied its contents onto the kitchen table. 5 different sets of lingerie. I was surprised. I had wondered where they had gone. I couldn't find them when I did the laundry. "Smell them! Now!" he shouted. I flinched at his outburst but didn't move. I knew exactly what he wanted and why. All I could do was stare at the table, He must have been pulling my lingerie from the damn laundry basket every Sunday morning, checking for any traces of my lover, and had finally found what he probably hoped he never would. My silence, my refusal to look at him. It was as much of a confession as saying the words out loud. And then he broke the silence. I don't need to describe the rage, the fury that followed my betrayal. He said things that could never be unsaid. That was the moment that proved our marriage was hopelessly lost. Almost everything he said was true. And even when I wanted to apologize and say I was sorry, I knew they would just be empty words. In the end, I managed to whisper, "It's over." That was probably a mistake. Looking back, I think I should have just let him unleash his anger, just sat there, endured it, let him go on for as long as he needed, given him the space to release it all. But no, I didn't do that. All I did was make him even angrier. "How do I know it's over?" he snapped. "Am I just supposed to trust you now? I'm a financial planner. Tell me, should I invest in this marriage? Because when we took our vows, that was supposed to be the guarantee. And now I'm supposed to accept that past performance is no guarantee of future results." It hurt. But he was right. That was when I decided to shut up and not make things worse, to give him some space, to let him grieve, to hope for a chance at forgiveness, or at the very least, to wait until we could talk instead of just screaming at each other. It took time. From that moment on, there was no warmth, no compassion, no tenderness left in him. He wasn't cruel, but he mostly just took care of himself. He did his own laundry, bought his own groceries, cooked his own meals, and cleaned his own car. I, too, was left to myself. Damn. I had never realized just how much he did around here. About 2 weeks later, he said he wanted to sit down and talk. And even though I had been anticipating this, when the moment came, I suddenly forgot everything I had wanted to say. My handsome husband started with this. I've been trying to process the grief of our broken relationship. Even if I forgive you, even if you stop cheating, our relationship will never be the same. Hearing that, I broke down in tears. Over the past 2 weeks, the cost of my affair had only grown, especially on an emotional level. So it was painful to hear that I would never have the same relationship with Cooper again. I was hoping that, with time, you'd forgive me and we could start over, I said softly. I don't think so. How do I know you're not still in contact with your lover? I'm not like that. I broke it off with him. Hearing the word lover stung. I started crying again. You know, he continued, I've thought a lot about forgiving you. I've tried to go back to what I thought we had. Maybe I wasn't enough, but whatever the reasons were for you cheating on me, that's on you. I don't know why you did it, but no matter what I did or didn't do, it doesn't justify you walking away from me. No, it wasn't you. You're right. This is all on me. Oh? Well, thanks for stating the obvious. His voice was cold. Here's the problem with forgiveness. If I forgive you, it makes me feel like I'm accepting your affair as something acceptable, like it was okay. And while you'll always have those beautiful memories of pleasure and those blissful coffee-filled mornings, humming in satisfaction, I'll hear that humming and wonder if you're reminiscing about the happiness you found in another man's arms. Oh, God. That was awful. I had never thought about it from his perspective. So what was I supposed to do? Cooper continued. This took away my ability to make my own choices. Instead, you made them for me. That's why they call it betrayal. No, baby. You're not like that, not at all. You're a good man. This is my fault. Please don't think that way. Unfortunately, it's a fact now. He exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. Then he looked me straight in the eye, one brow slightly raised. And I'm going to take back control over myself and only myself. You'll be free to do whatever you want. I knew what he meant. Cooper, please don't do this. Please give me a chance. A chance? Like the one you gave me? No, You took away my choice without asking. I take back what I said before. I'll be honest with you. I just don't want to be around you anymore. But divorce, that's something everyone will know about, and they'll ask why. So, if you're truly remorseful, maybe you'll tell them the truth. Because if they ask me, you can be sure I will. And 3 months later, I was a single woman again, with half of our savings, a car, and an apartment. We sold the house. And yes, Cooper was fair when it came to dividing our assets. I was even awarded alimony for 2 years, which was more than I expected, more than I deserved. What else did I get? A verbal lashing from my parents, the disdain of our neighbors, the resentment of my grown children for breaking up the family, loneliness, the responsibility of paying my own bills, a reputation as a reckless woman, the anxiety of searching for a job. I think that after a while, the routine of marriage, even a good marriage with a good partner, like I had with Cooper, can become distorted. The very benefits that come with stability start to feel like drawbacks. Maybe all those complaints at girls' nights slowly poisoned the good things I had in my life. Maybe they also made me a target for other men, while my state of mind was such that my actions certainly wouldn't have passed a husband test. Now, with so much free time, I'm finding it harder and harder to fill it. Yes, work takes up a lot of time, and it sucks. It was much nicer being financially secure without worrying about when the next paycheck would come. Cooper made good money, and while the terms of my divorce were fair, they were certainly not enough to live on for the rest of my life. I wasn't thinking about any of this when I was sleeping with Harris, was I? For the rest of my life. Damn. I had expected the rest of my life to be pleasant. Vacations I can't afford now. Time spent with a life partner, someone who had been through all the ups and downs with me. How could I ever have that again? Should I try to build that kind of relationship from scratch with someone new? Cooper is handsome, and with age, he'll only become more refined and distinguished. Women, on the other hand, age differently. And what about dating? Who am I supposed to date, and who would ever trust me? What am I supposed to say when someone asks why I'm divorced? Yeah, I'm divorced. It was my fault. I was a cheater, but, I've changed. You can trust me. Who the hell would believe that? And what if the guy who's interested in me was a cheater himself? Am I supposed to trust him? Wow. As boring and routine as certain periods of my life once seemed, they definitely had their advantages. I guess, given my current circumstances, my life is pretty interesting now. But I'm not sure interesting is a good thing. Thank you for listening until the end. See you in the next episode of English Epics. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.